Today I have the absolute honor of speaking with Dr. Nadine Macaluso, a name many of the listeners may probably know from the movie The Wolf of Wall Street because you are the original Margot Robbie.
Inside, my gut said, uh-oh. I just pushed that aside and grabbed the 5 carat ring.
Oftentimes, even like in our everyday life that is not so intense, we used to dismiss our intuition. We used to dismiss this first gut feeling because of
Yeah.
what society thinks is normal.
Movies, songs, messages, it's like we have to find the one.
Mhm.
But here's the truth, like if you don't really have a solid sense of self, how do you even know who really is the one? When I left Jordan, I said, you know what, at 22, you made a lot of sense. At 31, you don't.
Ah.
Just when you think you're losing your mind, you might actually be regaining it.
Hello and welcome to Insanity. I'm so happy and so honored to have you as my guest today.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Today I have the absolute honor of speaking with Dr. Nadine Macaluso, a name many of the listeners may probably know from the movie The Wolf of Wall Street because you are the original Margot Robbie. So you are the actual person who is supposed to be the character in the movie. So many people probably already know your name. I love and admire your work so much. For me, you're a magician. So you've experienced, well, yeah, you're alchemizing things because you've experienced so much, like, and you had such traumatic experiences in your life. And what many people do, and you don't, is that people turn bitter or they go in their shell and they hide. And you transformed it and you help other people. So you turned it into your mission, your work, and I find it incredibly inspiring. And I'm so grateful for you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Because of your intense journey, I wanted to explore a topic with you that I didn't find on any other podcast and that is very important to me. And this is our sense of self and how to reclaim it, especially after trauma, but also how to connect with our sense of self more deeply early on. Because
Yeah.
your story is that you were 22 years old when you met your ex-husband, Jordan Belfort, who was a very complicated person who didn't really treat you well, let's say, and we know that already from the movie. But I watched the movie a few years ago, and the comparison between the movie and between your story, and I read a lot about it in your book too.
Yeah.
And I think there is still a huge difference, and I feel like the movie is still a gloss over the situation as it really was and as I really understand it, which it needs to do that because it's Hollywood, and of course people don't
Right.
want to see the raw violence and the things how they really
Yeah.
are. But I think when you are in this situation as a human being, as a woman, it's very terrifying. It is extremely challenging. I'm really speechless because I think you alchemized it in a very magical way. And I think oftentimes, even like in our everyday life that is not so intense or doesn't feel so intense, we used to dismiss our intuition. We used to dismiss this first gut feeling because
Yeah.
of what society thinks it's normal. It's normal to meet your big love early on. It's normal to, have this traditional family life early on. And maybe it's not normal for everyone. That's why I picked the name Insanity, because I think the real sanity is probably insanity because we have to listen to what's in here. And that's why I wanted to ask you a bunch of questions about your sense of self. And my first question for you would be when you first started to actually notice that something would probably be slightly off. The first time your gut feeling was sending you an alarm.
Yeah. So, I have a video about this, and actually it has like 15 million views, right? Because I guess it's resonated with so many people. And so when I met my ex, the Wolf of Wall Street, 6 months later, we got engaged. So there were red flags that I ignored that probably started to occur after the first 3 months. But again, being 22 and not having a strong sense of self, because at 22, you're just building your identity. Your brain's not even fully developed till 25. Then it still develops, but it has to learn just through experience. It doesn't develop on its own. And so he asked me to marry him.
Yeah.
And I said yes, but inside my gut said, uh-oh. And I just pushed that aside and grabbed the 5 carat ring, and off we went on the Concorde to Paris, right? But that I'll never forget it. I mean, that was my body literally said to me, "Uh-oh." It had words.
It had words. That's incredible. So you were really feeling this thing that it said, don't do it, this warning.
And I just went right against it.
Yeah, we do that so often, even in small things. And did it
Yes.
reoccur? Did it reoccur like within the first 3 months, which I think you said that the first 3 months were still kind of
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, the first 3 months, after the first 3 months, that was when my ex would start to pressure me
Hmm.
and to try to coerce me to get married, to have children. And so I wasn't really ready to get married and have children, as you suggest in the beginning of our conversation. I had it in my mind, I wanted to wait till I was 30
Yeah,
because my parents were divorced. And I just knew like it was dumb to get married young. It didn't make sense. But that's what he wanted. And he really coerced me. And I self-abandoned and went against my values and what I really wanted to keep the relationship. So
yeah,
I didn't as much inside voice back then. It was more my outside voice was like, no, 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 no. And I would try to express that to him. But I was no match for him. And then eventually I just acquiesced because I was just like, oh, he just must love me so much.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think many women can relate to that. Like we want to believe in this fairy tale, and I think it's just right now that we start to realize that we probably jump too fast into the dating market. Like we are very young and we think this is something that we are supposed to do. I remember myself when I was a teenager and I thought this is just what we are supposed to do. Is there a way for
Yeah.
us to resist it or to prioritize our values, especially when we are young and we are not sure yet what these values are? We are just probably not that interested in dating. We are just not that interested in marriage at that point in our lives. We have different values and priorities. So, do you probably have a tip for young girls who want to stick with the plan, but it's difficult because they get this societal pressure and also this fairy tale story that they have to get married? Is there something they can do or practice to stay strong?
Oh, yeah. I mean, first of all, we have to debunk this myth of romantic love, right? Like there ain't no prince coming to save you. You know, we have to save ourselves. Every person on the planet has a right to discover who they are. They truly, authentically are inside. And it's fun to date. It's fun to get to know another lover, another partner. And then I think when you bring sex into it, right, women really bond through that hormone of oxytocin. So it can be very easy for them to lose themselves, right? Because we want to merge with another partner. It's fun to feel like we're one with another partner. However, I think until your sense of self is somewhat developed, it's too easy to lose yourself in the other person. And when you think about it, the average age of a woman now is till 80. So do you really want to find somebody at 22 that's going to make sense to you at 78? Right. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking that to myself when I left Jordan, I said, you know what, at 22, you made a lot of sense. At 31, you don't.
Ah.
And so, and so you got to take those things into
Yeah.
consideration because you don't even know who you are because we're all just developing humans in
Mhm.
our early 20s. And
Yeah.
so date and have fun, but take yourself more seriously.
I love this. That's
You know,
such a great advice. Yeah.
yeah, I think we just live in a culture that tells women they need to be chosen to have value, but
Yeah.
choose you.
Yeah, that's so true. And I wasn't aware of that until recently, that the culture literally says you have to be chosen. And this contradicts another theory that says, as a woman, you are the prize. And we used to say it right now, you are the prize, you are the prize. But that's not what the culture says. The culture says you have to be chosen. And if a man doesn't choose you, you don't have value. You are strange. There's something wrong with you.
Yeah, yeah. If there's something wrong with you. You haven't been chosen, or maybe you haven't chosen because you haven't liked who's been out there. But
Yeah.
I think dating apps, social media, right? Movies, songs, messages, it's like we have to find the one.
Hmm.
But here's the truth, like if you don't really have a solid sense of self, how do you even know who really is the one? And then also, if we feel empty inside and we're just trying to fill that hole, that's a dangerous place to be because then you could meet somebody who's going to exploit that
Hmm.
emptiness. You know, when you have a more solid sense of self, you're less likely to be taken advantage of. And that's what pathological people do. They take advantage of us.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? As a character in the movie, and I think also in real life, you are strong. Like you are a strong person,
Yes.
and yet this man managed to take advantage of you. So I think if there is someone who is even more vulnerable or like lost, as many are at
Yes.
22, that can go so terribly wrong because they like people who are so narcissistic, they cross boundaries. If your boundaries are even smaller, then that's terrible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you can't even have boundaries with them. Like they just don't, just that's one good way to know if you're dating a pathological person, set a
Yeah,
boundary.
your book has so many insights about that. Like, I will also link it later in the description of the
Right.
video because it just gave me so many insights. I will I will put a picture in later.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are
Okay.
so many insights. Like, if people really struggle with their relationships or they are not sure if they are wrong, if there's something wrong with them, if there are reoccurring patterns, this is a perfect guide. Like there are so many descriptions, like into detail, that will help and do help many people, I think, recognize if there's objectively something wrong or if it's just in their head, what we think oftentimes, like, oh, it's just me or it's just in my head, and today he or she is nice again.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So really a great book, and it gave me so many insights, so many things I didn't even know about. I marked a bunch of very interesting places, like you can only tame what you can name. That was one of my favorites. It's still very early in the book, but it's I used to say a lot that we can only change what we dare to accept first. And this is pretty
Mm.
much like the same thing. And I think we oftentimes look away for the sake of comfort. And that's why we can't change things. And that's why I thought this sentence, it was just so powerful and stood out to me
Yes.
so much. Yeah, we
Good.
can only tame what we can name.
That's right. You got to name it to tame it.
Right, right. Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah, another thing, like in your experience as a therapist, what would you say is something that people deny early on and that they don't want to name when they come to you, like and when you start uncovering things? Is there like a number one thing that you would say people ignore the most in the early stages of such relationships that are abusive?
Yeah, well, I think, if you think about it, because of the love bombing, which feels so good, and you get so much oxytocin and dopamine, it can really make you miss the red flags, or it can really make you push the red flags aside because usually this relationship moves at such an intense, fast pace.
Hmm.
So when their words don't match actions, you could be like, oh, they're just having a bad day. Or if they don't allow you to set boundaries, you could just say to yourself, oh, I'm being too difficult or too demanding.
Hmm.
So I think that the love bombing really causes us to deny or rationalize the red flags that we see, but we just push them aside because we just want to stay in that love bomb ecstasy.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there is currently a little bit of a challenging situation in society because we have this male loneliness epidemic. Men don't know how to date anymore. They don't know how to talk to women. And there are many men and women who think that men are not persistent enough, not, not loving enough, or don't show enough love through material things. So let's say, oh, he didn't fight for me, he didn't buy me this thing, he didn't show up with flowers, which to a certain degree is something very sweet. And then
Yeah.
if it's like too much, there's the love bombing. Where would you say is the difference between just trying to win your heart with gifts and love bomb you?
Yeah. Yeah, and love bombing isn't just gifts because it's also like constant texting, you know, telling somebody you're their soulmate after 2 weeks, right? But then, the movies and the songs, right, they've suggested to us that this is great. And so I think just like anything in life, we want the middle way. We need balance, right? If somebody's sending you tons of texts and tons of gifts and, being everything to you at every moment of the day, first of all, that's not sustainable. And I always say if it feels too good to be true, it probably is. But then, of course, we don't want somebody who neglects us and can't meet our needs and doesn't hear us, right? So it's a relationship where, they're kind, they're generous, it's consistent, but it just doesn't feel like it's so overwhelming.
Hmm.
Because so, this is a thing too in life is that we also have to ask for our needs to get met. In a love bombing situation, you're not even asking for any of it, it's just coming at you like this, right? But when we're mature adults, I need you to text me more. Oh, I'd like to see you more often. We have to ask for our needs to be met, and then we can see if the partner can meet our needs. And if they can, then it's a go. But if
Hmm.
they repeatedly can't, then it's like, bye bye.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's more of a back and forth. That's beautiful. I just thought that love bombing kind of reminds me of a stereotype. You get stereotype affection, you get stereotype gifts, you get stereotype
Yes.
words. So how would this person, for example, know your favorite flower or know what you like? They would probably just give you something that they think every woman will be in awe when she sees that.
Right. Or they've given it to every woman.
Yeah, yeah,
You
that's
know what
why
I
they
mean?
know.
We all kind
Yeah,
of have the same playbook, right? Did he take
yeah,
you here? Did he take you there? Did he get you this? Right? Because you're right. There's nothing really personalized about it.
yeah.
That's a
What?
very good observation.
Yes, a question that just pops into my head is, do you think that narcissists and people who play other people so much that they have a sense of self, or to which degree are they disconnected from it?
Oh, no, no. They're very disconnected. They have a false, what you see is a false sense of self. And underneath is, you know, a very tragic, broken, dark sense of self.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they don't want to look there.
Right. They
Yeah,
can't.
yeah, they can. Yeah, I'm also wondering when we are little, like it feels like, yeah, our brain isn't developed yet, but we kind of know that we exist. We do still have a sense of self. We know we like something, we don't like something. Something feels like us or it doesn't. Does it get lost when
Yes,
we
yes,
get
yes.
older? Sorry.
Yeah, what happens, I have a 2-year-old grandson,
Hmm.
and you're right. He does have a really good sense of self. I don't want this. I want that. He
Yeah.
really does, right? And I see it developing right in front of my eyes. But then what happens is, oftentimes we don't have emotionally developed, emotionally mature, healthy parents.
Hmm.
And so sometimes parenting can really force us to deny our true sense of self to keep the connection with the parent, right? So that's where it first starts to develop. And then what happens is we go to school and we have to develop a certain way, or then to keep friends. So little by little, we start to distort ourselves and give away parts of ourselves to keep attachment. And then what happens is we realize we're like, I'm miserable. What's happening? Oh, I'm not authentic. I'm not connected to myself. Then we spend the rest of our lives connecting to us, trying to connect to ourselves, learning ways to connect to ourselves. I always say it's like a trick that God plays on all of us, you know?
Yeah.
Because I do think that if you watch a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, they really do have a strong sense of self. But family, society, schools, we don't um we don't allow people the space to be who they are. And I say that love has two components. It's the quality of connection, tenderness, respect, and trust. But the second part of love that nobody talks about is giving someone the space to be who they authentically are.
Yeah, it seems to be so difficult because it terrifies people. It terrifies people to give space for others because they don't give the space to themselves already.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
And then right, and we feel like if the person is too differentiated is the word, um, then like we can't tolerate it, or we want them to be more like us, or we want them to be more like we want them to be, right? But that's just not, we need to give people the space to be their authentic selves. I had to do that as a parent for my children, right?
Hmm.
They weren't always the people that I thought they should be, whatever that is. So that's my work to tolerate that discomfort. It's not for me to put it on them.
Yeah, right. And I think many parents are just afraid that if their child is different, which can mean a challenging situation, can mean a challenging life or part of life. So if the
Mean a good
child is
thing, or it
different,
could, but it could mean a good thing. But the people can't tolerate difference,
mhm.
right? That's why there's racism. That's why there's sexism. That's why there's misogyny, right? That's
Yeah. But and that's the crazy thing because everyone is different. And it's crazy that we
I
can't
know
tolerate one of the few things we know for sure about.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. But as you emotionally develop, and the ironic thing is, as you become have a more secure sense of self, you can tolerate the difference
Hmm.
because you are secure with yourself.
Yeah, so you're not so, even if you're terrified, you can just coexist with the difference of another person.
Yes,
That's
yes.
awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. And that makes so much sense because this means, of course, narcissistic people don't have this sense of self, this developed sense of self, at least. So there's a lot of story above that. And if they, since they are so terrified of themselves, they will also be terrified of you. So they will do anything they can to not see, hear, or feel you.
Yeah, right. They'll control you. Yes.
Yeah.
Right, right. To manage
Oh,
almost, to manage almost their lack of self. Yes. Well,
yeah.
that's one of the reasons why, not the only reason, but a piece of it.
Yeah. And would you also say that the best way to deal with a narcissist is not to deal with a narcissist at all?
Yeah, I mean, I call them pathological lovers because, as I write in my book, I think they're much more than a narcissist, these
Hmm.
people that I'm talking about. Yeah, I think the best thing is to run like hell because,
Yeah. Yeah.
right, because we can't make people who we want them to be. The only person we can control is ourselves.
Hmm.
And it just doesn't make sense to attach yourself to that person because they're just going to cause so much damage and pain and emotional distress.
Yeah. I would also like to explore the feeling of shame for who we are. Because I think that as we grow older, we don't just abandon our sense of self, but we are also oftentimes ashamed for our wants, for our needs, for who we are. We are like ashamed of the truth. And we fall more for the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. How do you recommend to deal with it?
Yeah, so shame, before I was obsessed with trauma bonds, I was obsessed with shame because I really do believe that shame is the root of all mental health challenges. It's just the root of so many things in life, so many things that we feel within ourselves and so many things that we feel within our relationships. Because if you think about shame, it means I'm broken, I'm unfixable. The word shame comes from the root word is skim, which means to hide, right? So we feel unworthy. We don't feel worthy of love. And that's a very painful place to be. And so what I do with people when they feel shame is we kind of figure out what are their core shame beliefs.
Mm.
Am I unlovable? Do I have to be perfect to be loved? Nobody will ever love me. I can only achieve, people only love me if I achieve. So um, I have to control to be loved. So we get to like, what are their shame beliefs? Because everybody's is different. You could have more than one, but it's important to know what yours is. And then we come up with an opposite affirmation that contradicts that they can write every morning or write every night, or when they become aware of their shame core belief driving their behavior, they can pause and be like, okay, no, wait, that's not truth. What's my affirmation? Because now you have to program the affirmation into you.
Yeah, I love that you're working with affirmations. I never had a therapist, but I'm my own therapist. I'm investigating a lot. I'm learning a lot. I think maybe all people would do very good having a therapist. Just doing it, like your own mental health care.
Yes,
Just do it.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
and
yes.
yeah, I do it with myself while learning from everyone I can, and um. I I discovered this method for myself. So whenever I feel that something is off or I just don't feel like myself, I work with an affirmation, something that
Yes, yes.
contradicts the feeling.
That's right. And the research shows that if you say it to yourself in the mirror, it works even better.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Is there one affirmation that works for many people when it comes to shame? Like, do you have something that anyone can
I
apply?
mean, just, it's just really like I am worthy of love and kindness, just something as simple as that. But I do think it's good to figure out what your shame statement is. And so
Hmm.
I have actually a shame compass. It's on my website, so drnay.com. You can get it. And then I have a self-acceptance compass,
Hmm.
right? So yeah, I really think working with shame is super important.
Yeah, I currently, for myself, I use the inf affirmation, I'm proud of you. Be
Good, good.
Yeah, because uh, we don't hear that very often. This affirmation, we just don't say it to other people often enough, I feel. And once I've realized that a friend said, I'm proud of you, she just said it to me, and it meant so much. And in that moment, I thought, oh, maybe I have a negative belief there. Let's just practice this one. And
Good.
before,
Yeah, and that's how you find out the ones that resonate with you, right? Like what hits you when somebody says it. I remember when I was trying to make a decision about whether I should let them use my name or not for the movie.
Mhm.
And I was in school then, and I was going on a walk with a girlfriend. I was talking to her about it, and she just looked at me and she said, I trust you'll make the right decision. And I was like, that felt like magic.
Yeah, that means a lot. Like even the little things we say to each other, oftentimes, especially as friends, they just stick and they stick for a reason. I love this tip that we should investigate if something sticks with us. So this kind of means it's important and we should probably do some work
That's
around it.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
What do you think about sensitivity in general? Like, is it a good thing?
Well, I think some people are more sensitive than others, right? And there's a lot of research with that with Elaine Aron, I believe. She wrote a book, The Highly Sensitive Person or Individual. But I think sensitivity in general gets a bad rap
Mhm.
because I think emotions get a bad rap. But I think sensitivity can be good because it's your body's, warning system, right? You're picking up on expressions, energy shifts, inconsistencies between words and actions. And a lot of times your nervous system is processing information faster than your conscious mind can process it. And so you get that feeling that something's off or somebody says something to you insulting and it hurts. Listen to that.
Yeah, but we
It's all
oftentimes
information.
Yeah, what we oftentimes do is when something is insulting, and if we feel insulted, we will push it away. We'll be like, ah, it's not so bad. It's just words. It's just words. Words aren't so bad. I'm too sensitive right now because that sensitivity has such negative rep nowadays. And yeah, and that's probably one of the reasons why it also took us so long to recognize that verbal abuse is abuse. And I love how you point out in your book that it can be more damaging than physical
Yeah.
abuse and it remains undiscovered.
But just think about it. Remember the saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me? I mean, maybe you were too young for that, but that was like a ridiculous thing that we always said as children, which couldn't be any further from the truth. But we get these silly things ingrained into our brain. And, here's the thing is that when you're in a pathological relationship, toxic relationship, coercive control is a huge part of the abuse. Coercive control and manipulation. And so, because at the bottom of this relationship, the pathological partner wants power and control over you. So, coercive control, though, the hard part about it, it's invisible. Nobody else sees the micromanaging, the degrading comments, the insulting comments, the sexual coercion. Nobody sees the manipulation of the gaslighting or the lying right to your face. And so, Lisa Fontes, who wrote a beautiful book called Invisible Chains, they're invisible.
Mhm.
And so it really can make us feel crazy, but it's over time, it's just as damaging. And it's really death by a thousand cuts. But we're used to thinking of abuse as like a physical punch, the police come, it's over. That's not the way abuse works. It's chronic and persistent and happens all the time, and it's often invisible.
And how it holds us back is crazy because just imagine someone tells you you're unworthy for years, let's say, which would be already very
Right.
horrifying. But this is the belief that you start developing, and this will influence your entire life from then on. So you will not reach your highest potential. You will not go for the job you want. You will not go for the life you want. You will not go for the person you want. Like it literally holds
That's
you back from everything, and it's
right.
invisible to everyone.
Kind of saying you're not worth it, you're a terrible person, you don't deserve this. I mean, all the thing. I mean, I don't even want to say it because a lot of times they curse, these people. But they even micromanage their partners, how they do the dishes. I mean, every little thing, they make them do everything, but then they criticize how they do it. And
Mhm.
it's never good enough, right? And so now you're in a psychological bind. And that's why these relationships, we call them a trauma bond, because it's really like the person gets entrapped in there. Because now this person has abused them so much that they've lowered their self-esteem and they put so much fear into them. And
Yeah.
now they're really easy to control.
Yeah, and it feels so good when things are good again. So you kind of
That's
want to
right.
hope and believe again that things will be all right. And it also helps you to have to establish the positive view on yourself again, to establish like
That's
the
right.
positive story. And you want it, of course. And I
You
just
want it. Yeah, right. And I say hope is the hook.
hope is the hook. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think when we have pain, when we experience pain, we work against our sensitivity because we don't want to feel the pain. So of course it saves our lives somehow that we don't feel it. But it's because of that that it's so easy
Yes.
to go back into the pain again.
Yeah, yeah, we dismiss, we deny, we reject the pain. We can't be with the pain. It can be intolerable, as you say. So we have all these defensive mechanisms to not be with it,
Hmm.
right? As humans, we have a hard time being with negative emotions, but they're just like a wave. They will come and go.
Ah, yeah. Is there a technique that we can use to be better at managing our pain?
Yeah, so the technique really is tracking the sensations that occur inside of our body
Hmm.
when we feel the pain. And sometimes people cannot be in their body. Their body is just holds too much pain. They have too much of a pain body. But if you're not one of those people and you start to feel overwhelmed with a mix of emotions, negative emotions, sadness, anger, frustration, despair, right? Where do you feel it? Do you feel it in your stomach? Do you feel it in your chest? Do you feel it in your jaw? And really being with the physical sensations and naming it. And you can do it, right? And then maybe journaling about it, going to talk to a therapist about it, going to talk to a friend about it, right? Processing it. And then what happens is we hold it, contain it, digest it, metabolize it. First of all, emotions are information for us.
Hmm.
So if we feel super angry because somebody's crossing our boundaries, probably a good reason we feel the anger. Or if we feel sad for the 100th time that the person hasn't shown up when they said they are, right? So emotions are also our internal compass, but we're really just not taught how to understand them and be with them.
Yeah, for sure. And it makes me think that being sensitive to our emotions and to our feelings in general requires true
Yeah.
strength. And like sensitivity is actually the strong thing about us.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes like if the motion feels too overwhelming too, you can really like put your feet on the floor and press and like put your hands together too to contain it, to
Ooh,
like give your body support to be with the emotion. That also works too.
I love that. And would you say that anger in general is a bad emotion?
No, I think what happens with anger is that we either turn it against ourselves, and it becomes depression,
Mhm.
or we've only seen it acted out in abusive ways, right? And that's not healthy. But we can have healthy anger, healthy aggression, because we have been hurt, we have boundary has been crossed, we have not been valued. And I think for women in general, they have a hard time accessing their anger. So I'll often say to people, what's your relationship to your own anger? Oh, I haven't thought about that, right? Are you a person that depresses it, turns it against itself? Are you a person that really acts it out? but can you be with it and use it as information to then direct your behavior?
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've never heard that one before. When I was younger, I would be angry sometimes, not to an unreasonable degree. Even now, I can be angry, but anger, I kind of think anger is fun. Like I enjoy my anger because I think, oh, it
Yeah.
feels so good to let it out, and it feels good, and I make fun of it, and I can be like sarcastic and everything in my head, and I just think that's a good feeling. And I remember that when I was angry when I was little, I was told that there's something wrong with the anger, that I shouldn't be angry. And it's so dismissive of this emotion. So you kind of grow up and you think there must be probably something wrong with it.
Yeah. The two emotions that parents have a lot of hard time with is anger and sadness. Right. And so that's just the way it is because parents can't tolerate negative emotions in themselves or in their own children. But the most important thing to do is when you're with somebody, and that's was what we do in therapy, right, is we just validate it. Like I can see why you would feel like that.
Hmm.
That must be really hard, or I understand why that would make you sad. And I think people fear that, when we validate an emotion, it makes the person go deeper into it. Actually, what it does is it gives the person relief because they're
Yeah.
like, somebody hears me, I'm feeling felt. And so just simply validating people's emotions and you validating your own works.
Yeah. Would you say there is a certain action that helps with anger that is a good thing you could do while you are angry?
I mean, I think the first thing you could do is first notice it, right? Pause, you don't act right away and just get really curious. Like, why am I angry right now? What's really happening? Like, what's happening that's making me angry?
Hmm.
And get curious about it. Why is anger visiting right now? And then once you get the answer, then you have a decision to make about what to do.
Is anger a protection from sadness, or is it its own
It
thing?
can be. It can be. It's everybody's different. That's where like pop psychology doesn't work, and that's where therapy really works because you have to know if anger is a emotion that you go to automatically, right? Because if it is, then I don't want you to swim in your anger. But
Hmm.
if it's not, then I want you to be able to feel your anger.
Yeah.
So it just depends on each person.
All right. Yeah. And when we felt angry or when we felt ashamed, or if we thought someone crossed our boundaries, we like exploded, now we feel ashamed. Um, how can we stop apologizing for setting boundaries, even if, it's probably unnecessary to be reactive in a way that makes another person uncomfortable, but how can we stop
Right.
apologizing?
Well, I think, first of all, that goes to like a developed sense of self and feeling worthy and feeling that you have a right to have a boundary
Hmm.
and that, self-care is not selfish, that you have your own needs, your own wants, your own values, and it's your job to actually keep connecting to them as a form of protection. And I think you brought up a great point is that we won't set a boundary, won't set a boundary, won't set a boundary. And then finally, somebody will cross it and will explode. And then we'll feel shame.
Hmm.
But if we consistently set them, we don't feel resentment and we don't pop like a pressure cooker.
Yeah, yeah. Right.
Right. And so what I offer to people is I just say, try and set it once and see how it feels. And you know
Yeah.
what? You'll be shocked. You don't die afterwards. And we have to learn to tolerate the discomfort that we feel from setting boundaries.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. And probably we will be surprised by how many people will actually accept the boundaries and even respect them.
100%.
Yeah, I've experienced that myself too, because like my husband said he loves that about me, that I have strong boundaries. He was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I like that. Like this is not, you don't like this and that, and you just say it." And I think just an important thing seems to be that you're able to verbalize it. But there is like no way to verbalize it if you d don't even know what's going on. Like if you can't because you're confused. So that's like an important thing to do, to be like aware of these feelings and boundaries.
And I think your husband brings up a good point because it's like, okay, well, now I know what she wants. And now I know where she stands. Now I know what she needs.
Yeah.
Then I can give her what she needs.
Yeah, yeah. And in the past, I had a friend, not a close friend, but someone I knew. And I just, one time I said, hey, I didn't like this and that one thing. And this person was extremely annoyed. Like they didn't really call me back. They basically blocked any conversation. And my initial feeling was, oh, was something wrong with me? And at that point, I had a really good friend and still have her. And she said, no, you know what? A grown-up person would think it's great that you set this boundary and there's nothing wrong
That's
with you.
right.
And these words help, this validation from somebody.
Yes, 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 yes. That's so important.
There are so many people who, instead of going to a therapist, instead of seeing a human being, they're using tools like ChatGPT. And
Yes,
ChatGPT is now validating every emotion, whatever you come up with. It
so
became a meme
true.
already.
Yes.
Yeah. Where would you say is the difference between healthy validation and if just everything gets validated all the time?
Well, I mean, listen, uh, we're complex human beings, right? And so, if you're a person that didn't grow up with very validating parents, you're going to need a lot of external validation. But the work actually comes from self-validation and self-soothing. And so I love ChatGPT and I use Claude like crazy all the time, so it's great. But I think that it's just anything out of balance isn't good.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's great for women, especially when they're in trauma bonds or they've just left their trauma bonds and like they get crazy texts from their exes and they want to learn how to answer them without emotionality or they want to gray rock them. It's great to throw it into
Yeah.
ChatGPT. But I think ChatGPT constantly for validation could is a slippery slope.
Yeah, yeah, because if someone shows up who has a personality disorder or is like treating people poorly, but in his mind he's like, oh, it's totally clear why I'm acting out so much, and the ChatGPT will say, yeah, 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 of course that's totally normal. So it can be
That's
probably a bit dangerous. Yeah. But like my personal impression in the beginning was also that's kind of cool because if you don't have anyone to talk to right now and if you don't have a therapist, but you
yes.
just need something
It's
neutral.
beautiful. Yes, it can be very, very useful. Very, very useful in many, many instances. But I think the most important thing is that for you to understand yourself,
Yeah.
know thyself, you know, and
Yeah.
that's really where your lies.
Why do you think people become so disconnected from themselves over time? And why are they so afraid of themselves in the long run?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, I think that it happens at a very young age.
Hmm.
Often children have to disconnect from themselves to keep the attachment to the parent. And we need the parent to survive.
Yeah.
So it's actually adaptive as a child if we have to do that. And hopefully you don't have to, but often we do. And then, like I said, that just carries on in a lot of different relationships. And then it just becomes a way of being that we don't even know.
So like a
Because,
survival.
yeah, it's a survival mechanism. We've been doing it for so long, but then, like I said, we turn around and we're unhappy and we have anxiety and depression. And those are often signals that we're disconnected from ourselves.
Hmm. Oftentimes people will say, yeah, but life is about survival. We have to like survive. We survived for so many years as a species, and
Yeah,
that's why it's still in there. And I,
yeah, and we do have to survive, but we're really meant here to thrive.
yeah, yeah, that's beautiful because I kind of disagree with the survival part. Every time someone tells me that life's about survival, I'm like, God, I hope it is because
No, no,
I'm not a
no.
virus, and I kind of think it should be about the quality of life and not just being alive, because otherwise we probably wouldn't be human. We would be like another life form if it was about survival only.
Yes, yes. And there are many species that are just about survival that don't have our capacity, right, as a mammal. But I think that's why I use the term surthrive, right?
Hmm.
Because we've survived, but we want to go from surviving to thriving.
Yeah. Do you think we are at that stage in society right now that we are in this transition phase, or are we still very stuck in survival mode?
I think that's very different for every individual, right? Every individual comes in with a different set of parents, a different set of capacity. But I think there are plenty of people that are thriving, and I think there are some that are just surviving. And what I've discovered is that when life gets really hard and you have a terrible event, or an illness, or an addiction, or a trauma bond, or it's just some terrible loss that is overwhelming to you. It cracks you open and it forces you to go inside and develop more tools and get to know yourself. And then
Hmm.
you start to go on the path to, you're
Hmm.
on your path to.
Yeah. And so many people, good people, this take this as a lesson. So I feel like many people who go there, who crack open, they come out stronger and they turn it
That's right.
into service just like you did.
Yeah, yeah. Or they just take it as an opportunity to learn about themselves and grow and reach their potential in life and in love, because that's what we're here to do, is to self-actualize and reach our potential. We're
Hmm.
not here. I mean, listen, life has enough suffering just naturally by the nature of life, right? But we've got to fill in some good stuff too.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest hint for who we are as a person, as a human being? How do we know what is for us and what isn't? Like, what would be the bodily sensation if something is good for us?
I'll never forget, well, I went back to school late, right, to become a therapist. I went back to school at 38, and I think at 39, I went for my orientation to be at my new school to get my master's. And I'll never forget, I sat in the auditorium and I got just this overwhelming feeling, like the most poignant feeling. Tears welled up in my eyes. And I think it's a feeling when you do something of like your home,
Hmm.
and you'll know when it comes,
Hmm.
and you'll know when it's not there.
Yeah, yeah. Is it like peaceful?
It's peaceful, but it's also a very strong feeling.
Hmm.
It's it's like in your whole body, your whole brain, and it's just like, and then it's just like a landing. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, feels right. It's like Goldilocks. That's why Goldilocks is such a great story, because this bed's too hard, this bed's too soft, but this bed's just right.
Ah, yeah, yeah. And
You know?
how is it with a romantic partner? What would you say? Um, a love that is challenging and that isn't true to who you are versus a love that is representing you as a person, like that feels like home.
Listen, everybody says, love is hard, love is hard, love is hard. Yes, relationships take work, but love shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah.
And I have a saying, if somebody can't hear you, they can't love you.
Hmm.
Partner has to be able to hear you, to see you, to be curious about you, to want to understand you, and have empathy towards you. And if you don't have that, you don't have that. You don't have a relationship. Um, and that doesn't mean that like I could do that with my husband all day long and he can do that with me all day long. No. But we together 25 years now, but we take the time to be good friends, good partners, give each other the space to be who each other is. And we actually have a very calm, drama-free life, and it's very nice.
Yeah, yeah. People say love has to be unconditional and you have to be like, you have to be more tolerant with
Oh,
your
no, no, no.
partner.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Adult love is conditional. A love from a parent to a child is unconditional, but adult love is conditional. That
Yeah.
ship sails with parents. It's like we have to have conditions because we have boundaries. Our partner needs to hear us, respect us. We have
Hmm.
to be able to trust. If we have unconditional love, we end up in a trauma bond
Yeah.
because we're
And
just tolerating.
And I'm seeing all these videos of men who are lonely right now and who are super sad because they say that unconditional love is for women only, but men will never receive unconditional love. And I'm watching these videos and I think, why should it be unconditional? Or let's say, well, what if you are loved unconditionally, but it doesn't mean that someone is in an unconditional relationship with you? So their
Yeah.
feelings might be unconditional, good, but you won't see this person probably. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that is correct because you should work on yourself and you should try to communicate with your partner and all that.
And like adults do not give each other unconditional love. Like we have to, that doesn't mean that we expect people to be perfect, but that's what happens in a trauma bond is we just tolerate way too much.
Yeah.
It's unconditional. We need to have conditions to protect ourselves because, a healthy relationship is I'm in my own power and I'm connected to you. You're in your own power and you're connected to me. It's not one above one or one under. And so we're just not used to thinking of love like that. But love has to be between two equal.
Yeah. Do you think what would you say is the biggest achievement of a love relationship between two adults?
I think to be kind to each other consistently,
Hmm.
learn to like not get mad about every little thing, because when we're around one person for a long time, they can just get annoying to us, right? But just to, if it's not a big deal, it's not a big deal. And
Hmm.
just roll and collaborate with your partner. I think is super important.
Yeah, I love that you brought up kindness because I also feel that a good relationship, a good partnership will make you grow and it will make you better. It will make
Yes.
you kinder, while a relationship that isn't good for you will flood your body with anxiety and make you
That
not
will
a better
silence
version.
growth. Yes. Yes, I think that's very wise. Yeah, Eric Fromm said that in his book, The Art of Love. When you really are in love, you're concerned for the growth of your partner.
Mm-hmm. And that means you
Sure.
take their interest to heart and not just what you can get out of this relationship.
Right. It's not, I mean, of course, listen, relationships are some just at the very base transactional,
Hmm.
but exactly, you're not just using, exploiting, and harming and betraying that person to get your needs met, which is what a
Yeah.
pathological person is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if we get into relationships when we are young girls and we want to go for the fairy tale, isn't that already a transactional thing? Because don't we think we need this to be validated by society? We need that so our families love us and everyone thinks we are normal. So we need to settle for this fairy tale, which in in itself sounds transactional to me because we just think, oh, so this man, this prince will now save me from being in the uncertainty.
Yes, yes, yes. That's a beautiful way to say it. And here's the thing is we have to learn to tolerate ambiguity. We have to learn to tolerate uncertainty. That's just a skill that we must develop as we get older. And it gets easier as you get older because you get more practice at it. But yeah, and we are making that other person responsible for us. So we're actually giving our power away in a way, right? But then they abuse that power.
Hmm. Is there something that we can do early on as children, or what parents can do with their children when the children are still very young to strengthen their sense of self so it doesn't even escalate so much?
Yeah, I think, giving your child the space to have their own autonomy, to have their own will, to have their own freedom, is very important. Again, seeing them as a separate individual, different from you, is very important while still meeting their emotional needs,
Mhm.
while still seeing and hearing and feeling them.
Yeah, that's very beautiful, and it feels like many parents see kids as extensions of themselves. So whenever the child does something that they don't like, they immediately think, "Oh, if something is wrong with the child, then something's wrong with me," and that's why they become so like angry and
Right.
controlling.
Right, right. But it's just a self that's developing. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to fail. We're all going to get rejected. That's
Hmm.
just part of life. That's how we learn. That just means you're trying.
Hmm. And would you say it makes sense for a child to be in some sort of therapy already early in their lives?
My children both went to therapy as teenagers.
Hmm.
My daughter's a therapist, actually. My
Oh,
son's
cool.
still in therapy. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're just very, we just believe in it. I mean, when you think about it, how many hours a week do you do thousands of other things except for spend an hour, even every 2 weeks, working on yourself and all your relationships? That's not that much time when you think about it. And
Hmm.
we expect ourselves to just develop and these relationships just to run.
Right. Yeah.
No, we need to work on them. We need to be mindful about ourselves, mindful about our relationships.
Yeah, and right now we are calling things therapy. And if we go to therapy, it kind of already suggests that there is something wrong. And I just think about what if you kind of have, a doctor for your whole life, a coach slash or a therapist, or like someone who just supports you in your development, a mentor, whatever you want to call it, without the stigma that there's automatically something wrong. It's like a
Exactly.
prevention.
Right. It's a perfect way to say it. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Okay, another question to you as a parent. Is there any relationship advice or any advice you give your kids on good partnership or any tip you give them what they should look out for?
I have a saying. I say children do what we do, not what we tell them.
Hmm.
So if you model healthy love for yourself, healthy love in your relationship, they will model that. But you can't tell your child to love yourself if you don't love yourself. You can't tell your child, set healthy boundaries, make sure your partner hears you, make sure you're getting your needs met if you're not living that. It's just not going to sink in. They're not going to believe it.
Yeah, yeah. So we kind of live what our parents preach or by what they preach.
Yeah, yeah. Like I always say, just like my children do what I do. Like my son, when he was younger, he'd only eat chicken nuggets or McDonald's or Taco Bell. Every night
Yeah.
I would make salmon, broccoli, or chicken and rice or whatever. And guess what? Now he eats salmon and broccoli.
Mm-hmm. And what was the best relationship advice you ever received from somebody else?
I wonder what is the best relationship advice? I don't know, really. I don't know if I've ever received like one specific thing. I think for me, it's been more of a just constant learning and building blocks and like
Hmm.
constantly building upon what I've learned. Um, I think that's really nothing really sticks out that somebody said to me, and I was like, oh, my mother said something to me once, but this is more about yourself. Well, she had a lot of great sayings, but she said to me, just when you think you're losing your mind, you might actually be regaining it.
Ooh, yeah, I love that.
I love that. And she
Yeah.
was right.
Hmm.
A lot of times, it might support you to your knees and you think you're going crazy. It just might be that old dysfunctional ways of being just might be crashing for new, healthier ways to emerge.
Wow, that's great advice. What was the worst relationship advice you ever heard?
Oh God, the worst relationship advice I ever heard was, like just stick with it, it'll get better. He's going through a phase. No.
Yeah, the worst relationship advice I've ever heard, I think it was from my family, and they said, "Oh, just get a guy, and if you don't share the same interest, it doesn't matter. If you have kids, you will have a common interest."
Yeah, I
Wow.
know.
Don't do that.
No, not great. No, don't do that. No.
Yeah, like if someone wanted to start a daily little ritual to feel worthy of love, is there anything you could tell them?
Yeah, what I would do is I would find out what your limiting beliefs are, what your shame beliefs are, and really in the morning, just write out an opposite affirmation or say it to yourself in the mirror. And the second thing is that you have to have discipline to build self-worth. The root word of disciple means love. And when you commit to working out, to having self-care, to showing up for meetings, you have to show up for yourself in life. You can't just blow everything off and make excuses and then just think you're going to feel good about yourself.
We expect that everyone knows how to love themselves, and it seems to be a very abstract concept for many. And they're like, yeah, but how
Yeah.
do I do that?
Yeah. And also, I would start with self-acceptance. It's very hard to go from self-hate and shame to self-love. But if you could just start to accept yourself for the imperfect being that you are and realize that rejection, failure, mistakes just mean you're living, but you have to show up for yourself. Nobody else can do that for you. The opposite of abandonment is commitment. You have to be committed to yourself, no matter what that looks like for you.
Yeah. One last question that I have is for people who are recovering from a traumatic relationship. And I think that many seem to be shameful again about that it took them a while to leave. It took them a time, it took them just so much pain to make this
Yeah.
decision. What should they do to overcome this feeling?
Well, I want to say this to them. First of all, everybody falls for con artists. Everybody. If somebody wants to manipulate you and use you and con you under the guise of love, it's very hard to see that. So you have to give yourself tons of self-compassion. And the second thing you have to do is stop thinking about that person, stop diagnosing that other person. Diagnosing that other person with 20 narcissism, this, that isn't going to help you. Is it important to understand who they are and what you experience? For sure. But then you must turn the mirror back on you and start to learn about yourself. That's where your healing is going to lie, not in focusing on them and who they are.
Yeah. And does it even matter that they spend time in these relationships, or is it probably something that can benefit them in their life, like it did for you?
Yeah, and I mean, listen, life is a journey. And I always say, we can't say, well, in my past life, I did it like this, so I know which way it's going to go. I mean, I think we're all doing the best that we can. Well, at least, the victims, maybe
Mhm.
not the predators, but
Yeah.
we're doing the best job that we can. And so if you fall into this relationship, and this isn't toxic positivity because I hate that, but for me, use this pain as an opportunity to grow.
Hmm. Hmm.
Use it as an opportunity to grow because we're meaning making individuals. And then at least this terrible relationship can have some meaning because it kind of forced you to become a better person, become yourself at best. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I think toxic positivity often comes in when people start to deny that things are really terrible. So it's like, oh, yeah, it wasn't that bad, or like, or
Right.
it is still kind of, it still had its good moments. But I think if you just acknowledge that it was terrible, yeah, it was.
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah, but then you just can find what value the terrible thing has for you. Like whatever it is, if it's like, oh, I can be a good example for my kids now, or I can help other people, or now I know what it feels like to be me. Something like there is
Exactly.
something in it.
Exactly. And and the research shows, and I write this in my book, that people who experience relational trauma do go on to develop post-traumatic growth. So
Hmm.
there's hope.
Oh wow, yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome. Oh my God. I thank you so much. This was an awesome interview. I will send a link to your book. I will put it in my description. And everyone who listens can get the first chapter.
Yeah. They get the first chapter for free and they can go to my website, drnae.com. And I have tons of free resources there. And if you're in a trauma bond right now, I also have an online community that's only $30 a month
Wow.
where I run support groups. My book is in there as a course. And I bring an expert in every week to talk. And there's a whole validating community of women.
How
And you can
beautiful.
find that too. Yeah, you can find that information too on my website.
How beautiful. Oh my God. I thank you so much in the name of all women for what you're doing. You are impressive.
Thank you so much. Well, this was an absolutely lovely conversation. You're a sweetheart and you're very bright, so keep going.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.